Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Harrison, again, great that you're with us today. In the previous panel, I think we well established that there is a decent amount of bipartisan support for our initiative to preserve Plum Island. And there certainly is overwhelming community support back on Long Island to preserve Plum Island. So let's talk about the timing and how that may work. In your testimony, you stated that it is critical to designate Plum Island as a national monument now. Can you tell us a little bit about what could happen to Plum Island if we don't act with a sense of urgency, such as making it a national monument?
Thank you for your question, Mr. LaLota. Yes, I'd be happy to answer the question. Conservation takes a long time. I'm sure everyone on this committee understands that. And we've been hoping to bring a permanent conservation solution to Plum Island since about 2011. So 13 years in, we still don't have knowledge of the fate of Plum Island. But in the meantime, there are communities, ecological communities on Plum Island that are beginning to deteriorate with invasive species, vines of various species overtaking some of the critical habitats that we know are there. The New York Natural Heritage Program, which is made up of the top field scientists in New York State, did a 2015 ecological inventory across 4 seasons of Plum Island and wrote a report in 2016 that's publicly available. And they identified 24 different ecological communities, several of which they considered to be significant, and almost all of which would be threatened if we can't begin management planning for Plum Island now. We understand that the Department of Homeland Security is in the midst of decommissioning its activities at Plum Island, and they are doing quite a lot of work across the island, but their mission, their decommissioning is not the same as bringing new conservation and care and stewardship to the resources of Plum Island. And it needs to be done soon.
I want to focus specifically on the timing piece. A previous panelist suggested that there may be environmental issues which need to be remediated. If Congress waited longer and there are those environmental issues which need to be remediated, wouldn't those environmental issues be exacerbated, made worse the longer that we wait?
Yes, and I'm sorry I didn't answer your question more directly, but you're absolutely correct about that. And that is because when we have things like invasive exotic species that overtake ecosystems, the native plants can't support native wildlife, and the ecosystem deteriorates. We also need to control deer that come to the island because they do heavily browse these areas, and we have to make sure that the species that breed on Plum Island are cared for as well. So there's a whole complex series of reasons why it needs to be done soon, and also comprehensive management planning takes time. It's not something that can be done right away, and access to Plum Island has been prohibited for studies, except with very special permission, and so we do need to get this underway, even if the Department of Homeland Security doesn't leave Plum Island for a while yet.
I have 1 more minute, so I want to ask you one more question relative to the studies that you just mentioned. The previous panelist mentioned that there needs to be a certain amount of bureaucracy. We have some patience for some minimal amount of bureaucracy with respect to studies. In your testimony, you mentioned several different studies and publications that are already publicly available, including the Professional Biodiversity Field Studies of Plum Island conducted by the New York Natural Heritage Program, a book entitled The World Into Itself, and the journal entries in the Journal of the Suffolk County Historical Society.
Yes.
My question, given your expertise, your background, all of your understanding of this, do you believe that those materials, which are already prepared by professionals with specific knowledge about Plum Island, could be helpful to help expedite this initiative?
Absolutely. They certainly can, and there are more. And we'd be happy to provide a complete bibliography of what's available. And we know that a special resource study or any other similar study could get underway right now.
Great. Thank you so much. In 5 seconds, anything that we forgot?
Not in 1 second. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I yield.